Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Live action.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me. Probably been writing a song on the way to work this morning and studying some rodeo history at the same time. When you going to write a song about rodeo history, Jimbo? Hey, Jimbo, good morning. Good to see you. Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy. Just another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, that Buck and Flamingo, that's the largest turquoise jewelry store in Oklahoma, right?
According to me, Jimbo, it is.
And I've heard rumors that it may even get larger.
Oh, yeah. We're right in the middle of an expansion coming around that 1st of November. We'll be double the size. We'll be twice as big as we was.
Wow.
Or were.
Look out, New Mexico. Cody, we've got Jeff Todd with us today. Jeff's president of the Oklahoma High School Rodeo Association. You know, we've got a big high school rodeo coming up here October 7th and 8th.
Ooh, that's going to be a big weekend.
It's going to be a big weekend. Wow. And, of course, Jeff, if that name sounds familiar, he's a nephew of H.L. Todd, great steer roper. And he also married into the Hainzinger family. So his family is very well connected in the rodeo world. He's a big shot attorney down in Oklahoma City. Got a lot to talk about today, so we're going to get into all that. Jeff, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Oh, man, I couldn't be more tickled than to be with you guys this morning.
Well, we're happy to have you. Whereabouts you grow up, Jeff?
I grew up in northwest Kansas, just northeast of Colby, Kansas, on the farm that my family homesteaded back in the early 1900s. And actually, I was raised and grew up in the same room that HL grew up in. So my parents still live on the homestead. That house was built in 1914, and so I got to grow up in that house, and that was, I guess that's one connection I have with HL.
Yeah. Is that mostly farm country up in there?
Mostly, my family though, I mean, they're cattlemen and horsemen, and my great grandpa moved out there, and they said he liked horses better than cattle. My grandpa was more of a cattleman and had a little starter lot, and my dad is definitely well-respected cattleman. He has a little stocker yard there, and he likes to raise cattle. That's his hobby. He's 79 years old, and that's his only hobby is raising cattle.
Yeah, that's a pretty good hobby. We like beef. We need to eat.
How come there are such a large abundance of feed yards all along that western part of Kansas?
Well, I think it's the availability to feed. You know, there's a lot of, up there where I'm at, there's a circle about on every section, circle of corn. And so there's a lot of corn, and I think those feedlots sprung up because you had all that feed right there. And, that's what works for my dad's operation is he grows those cattle, sells them on Superior, but it's crazy. Those feed yards within 10, 15, 20 miles of him fight over his cattle. They don't have to pay the freight to get them very far. So, in the arid climate, it's good for cattle.
Well, talk about a bunch of nice people out in that part of the country, but that's some rough living out there, Jimbo, I'd say. Holy moly. I've never been to Colby where the weather was just very good.
Yeah, that's tough country. But
There's about two good days a year out there, but yeah, it's a great place to grow up. And of course, I married into this little Osage County family when I was just 20 years old, and I'm 51. So I've been down in the Osage a lot longer than I was even up in Kansas, and so I'm pretty partial to the Osage myself.
How'd you meet your wife, Jeff?
Well, we were both on the rodeo team at Northwestern State there at Alva, and I guess I tricked her into going on one date with me, and then I never left. So that's kind of how we did it. We started dating in the spring of 1991. I think our first unofficial date was actually at the timed event finals. A bunch of my buddies and I went down, and Hank and showed up there with Nancy, and that was right before spring break. And then I got back from spring break, and I built up the courage to ask her on a date, and we've been together pretty much ever since.
Wow. What events did you work on the rodeo team?
Well, I roped calves and team roped. I don't know. Probably my freshman year of college, I was more of a team roper. I lived with basically Jet Johnson was there, and Jet and his brother Justin. And Jet pretty much lived in my room because I had a TV and a refrigerator and a computer, and so we got to be good friends. And Justin and Jet, and I kind of fell in with a group from Wyoming there that were at Alva, and we leased steers from Rhonda Harrison, and we roped a lot. And then Justin graduated, and Jet went on to Panhandle, and then Nancy and I got married in '92, and I was too broke to do, as a young married guy, to team rope and rope calves. And so since I married into that calf roping family and I had an abundance of calf roping horses, I went to calf roping, and I did that for, really until I went to law school. And then I, kept roping calves a little bit. And, but then here about 10 years ago, I switched back, and I'm back team roping.
How did you get interested in being a lawyer?
Well, I kind of got pushed into it. I took Nancy. My family has a farm south of Burlington, Colorado, farm and ranch that my mom grew up on. And in the summer of '93, we were married. I guess it was the first summer we was married. I took Nancy out there, and my dad was managing that place, and he was hoping that we'd want to stay out there, I guess. And we were there 90 days, and we went to 30 rodeos, so we had a lot of fun. But that year we had a big wheat crop, this big wheat country out there, and it just got mowed down in a hailstorm, and it was just so devastating. And my Osage bride, she didn't know about the high plains, and so I pretty much said, okay, let's go back to Oklahoma, and I think I'm smart enough to get into law school. And really, the whole goal there, Nancy's dad was in the, dirt construction business, mainly in the oil field. There wasn't any oil field work. There'd been, I'd probably been a bulldozer operator. But I came back and I said, if I can get into law school, I'll do that. And really the goal was to make enough money so we could, afford to buy nice horses for our future kids and go to junior rodeos and bring them up in the lifestyle we got brought up in.
Well, and I guess that worked out pretty good, didn't it?
It has so far. We've been very blessed. And, I fell into a good firm and was there in Oklahoma City for 25 years. And then actually here last year, a client hired me away. And so we moved south of Oklahoma City. We actually live in Wayne, Oklahoma now. And but I drive down to Ardmore and work for the Dobby family. which obviously is a big ranch and stuff. But they pretty much hired me to run their office and run their oil company. And so, and I still do a little lawyering on the side. The firm wouldn't let me go, so I still do a little bit of that. But we've had a little transition. And then, of course, Hank and I ranch up in the Osage together. And so we keep the road hot down here.
You live down there by Doug Clark, I guess?
I live about 2 miles from Doug Clark. Doug lives on the west side of the interstate, and I live about a mile east on Highway 59 of the interstate. You bet. There's a lot. That's horse country down there. A lot of great horsemen.
Yeah, they're everywhere down there. It seems like that's where a lot of them's moving to if they can't get a place in Weatherford, it seems like.
Oh, this I-35 corridor is loaded up with horse folks. And, you know, I have the pleasure. I still represent the NRHA and the NRCHA. I get to do a lot of their legal work, and it's amazing. You know, of course, I know a lot of the rodeo folks, but the horse show folks and the trainers, and it's amazing that I-35 corridor, you know, really from Guthrie as you go all the way south, you know, and then of course when you get in Texas, it just kind of quadruples. So it's amazing, the horse industry.
What were some of the things that the agricultural business would need a lawyer for, Jeff, that you did the most of?
Well, you know, I started out as a young lawyer and just learning how to be a lawyer. And, of course, I wanted to do stuff in that field. And so early on, I got in with Oklahoma Farm Bureau, Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association, and they'd have policy issues that we'd work on. And, I remember back in the old, I don't know if you remember the hog bill days. Back, some of the industry groups were trying to push those hog farms out of Oklahoma.
Right.
And the Cattlemen's Association hired me to go out to the Capitol. And I had the pleasure of, they pulled in Clem McSpadden. He was out there lobbying. And, you know, so this would have been the late 90s. Right. And Clem came in, and, of course, he didn't really recognize me because I was in a suit. And I said, "Oh, yeah, Clem, you've called my name a lot of times." And, of course, he knew both sides of my family. And, he was such a gentleman. But so a lot of public policy issues, and then, you know, real estate issues. And then I got really big doing crop insurance. I've represented producers all over the country in crop insurance issues. So I've done a lot of that. But really, you get into, of course, cattle issues, cattle battles, feed yards and sale barns, and you know, they've managed to keep us pretty busy. We've, you know, managed to carve out a pretty good lifestyle representing people in agriculture.
Right.
What have you heard about Brazil making a move to be the new capital for where all the beef comes from? Well,
I think they've been pushing that for a while. Of course, Brazil and Argentina, and you know, they've got an abundance of land, and you know, didn't have the infrastructure on, you know, feed yards and slaughter facilities. And I think infrastructure is probably their biggest, you know, barrier right now to being able to compete. But I have had some clients actually that had some ranches in Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina, and the stories they tell me about the land and the abundance of feed and the things. But I think the infrastructure is pushing them back, but they're obviously been working on it for a while. So, you know, it's part of the global business of agriculture.
Do they rope down there with just like a cord with two balls on the end of it they throw and wrap around cattle's feet? Is that how they rope things down there?
I probably know as much of that as you. I've seen the stories on some of the gachos and and stuff. I'm fascinated by it. I want to go down there sometime and see it. Like I said, I've heard stories. There was a guy named Brett Davis that, he's still around. He rides horses in Arizona. And that guy, he went down there on a ship and got off, just went inland and lived for 5 or 6 years, 10 years, I don't know, and has just amazing stories about Argentina. Yeah, you need to get Brett Davis on the show, and he could probably tell you the ins and outs of it. So he used to ride for Miss Cud out at Woodward and broke a lot of her horses, but I think he's out there on a big ranch in Arizona right now. But yeah, that's who you need to get, because I'd love to go down there and see and be able to tell some stories on it. But
you seen some of them videos on the internet of them riding them bucking mules? Holy moly!
Right.
It's wild. It is wild.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got talking about Argentina and stuff.
Jeff, how'd you not catch a steer tripping bug since you're with a name like Todd?
Well, I have broke loose from hundreds of steers, and if you're a steer roper, of course you know what that means. But we would HL moved to Mustang, Oklahoma in 1989. I went to Alva in 1990, and I used to slip down there. And I would, anytime you were at HL's, he'd always have 3 or 4 horses saddled. And if someone come in there that could rope, he'd put them on them, and he'd have his steers, and you'd break loose and break loose and break loose from steers. Of course, I got to ride Rufus a little bit, and his famous steer horse, and he had several nice horses. But I think the main reason, Jimbo, I couldn't do that is I got married too young. I mean, I was 20 years old and fell in love with a great girl that I'm still with, and I just didn't have the money for those, what I thought back then was big entry fees. And so I just went to roping calves because I figured I could afford that. Now, my brother roped, and he just passed away about a month ago, but we found some pictures of him tying some steers down on Rufus. And I'll tell you, I did. He let me tie down. I've tied down 2 or 3 steers in the practice pen up home. He had a nice yellow horse, and I was out helping him, and he said, get on and tie a couple down. And if fate would have kept me in the Osage, full time, I would have been a steer roper for sure. Because, of course, my good buddy Gip Allen was there, and I would have that would have been a great thing to be able to hang out with him and learn how to tie steers down. And so I've done it. I've just never entered it. And I think it was just, part of how life dealt me those cards. And I didn't live there full time. And, by the time I was making enough money to do it, I was so busy practicing law that I didn't have time to do hardly anything but haul my kids around.
Right.
What do you know about the story of Rufus?
Well, I don't know quite as much now. His Kim and Kelly, HL's girls, they would have the full story on Rufus, as far as where he came from and whatever. I do know that when I was probably in 7th or 8th grade, HL moved from Colorado to Kansas City. He was went to work for Equitable and did farm loans in Olathe, Kansas. And he brought Rufus and a couple of mares by the house there in Kansas and left them with us for a winter. And so I got to get Rufus in shape that next spring and breakaway on him, breakaway some calves. And I know he was just the most gentle, just solid horse. And Gip has good stories about Rufus because HL would let Gip get on him. And I know some of them years Gip was making the finals, that when he was flying around on Gaylord's jet, that he'd go in. I know he rode him at Walla Walla and probably at Pendleton and some different things. But that horse was just a rock. I mean, you could fly a kite next to him and he wouldn't move. And he was just a solid, he might not work in this day and age, but they're tying him so fast, but on those big steers like they did, he was just the best. So, and Gip's story on him is they were at Cheyenne somewhere. I think it's Cheyenne, and Kim's twin girls were little, and HL had Rufus standing there, and those girls come, and they were like, I want to ride. And T. Woolman was riding by, probably on Dutch, and he said, yeah, everybody wants to ride Rufus. And he told those girls. So he was a popular horse, easy to ride, and I think that's why people like to get on him. So.
Every time I hear that name, I laugh, though.
Yeah,
I've never heard of anything
name.
else called Rufus before in my life.
Yeah, that's a good name, though.
It is a good name, very memorable name. Right. I tell you what, he would have been a good horse nowadays because HL's old son-in-law, Jimmy Hodge, he was tying steers back in 9 on him in them days and 10 regularly.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what they'd be tying these steers today on Rufus in.
Yeah. Well, he won the Horse of the Year that year. Jimmy hauled him, and they. I know there's a lot of people that got on him then too. So, and he was probably 17 or 18 when Jimmy won Horse of the Year on him that year. So
Jimmy won a lot of money on old Rufus. I remember everybody that crawled on him won a lot of money. Boy, HL, he didn't mind mounting somebody on him either if he thought they could win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder who got HL started roping steers. You know, the first time I saw him was at the Ben Johnson Steer Roping, probably early 70s, and I didn't know him or never heard of him. Here's this guy just showed up in Colorado, you know, but could sure rope. And I was just curious how he got started roping steers. Do you know?
Well, I know HL had that feed yard at Burlington, and he had a lot of guys through there that roped, and he had a nice place, and people stopped by there. But a lot of guys that worked for him, I know there's a guy named, I think, John Prather, and a lot of those Haas boys. I mean, there was a ton of guys that come through there. I don't really know who got HL started steer roping. You know, he had the bug, and he loved to do it. And then I know he taught Dave Brock how to rope. He taught Rod Pratt how to rope.
I was going to ask you about Rod Pratt out there.
Yeah. Yeah, Rod lived north of them, and Rod, I don't think, started roping until he was in, 19 or so. And he was, if you were around Burlington and you wanted to rope, you would be north of town, and HL, they'd be roping out there. But yeah, I know HL taught Dave Brock and got him started back in the day. And then Rod Pratt, and there was just a lot of guys who come through there, and they'd work for him, and they'd rope a lot. And then Henry, my father-in-law, he would tell me stories, Jimbo, about Tucklebird Junction there between Pawhuska and Ponca City when they had those big ropings, and he said he remembered HL slipping through there and entering those jackpots and the like. So. There was a lot of guys that floated through Osage County.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tell us about that time you hit that big lick out in Vegas, Jeff, team roping.
Well, I had, I don't know, it was 2014, I think, and I had just started back team roping. I had a couple of young horses and finally had kind of time in my life to start doing that, and I started going over to an indoor barn there. I was living in Tuttle, so southwest Oklahoma City, and got in with Malcolm Davis, who's an old team roper name. Malcolm let me go rope with him a couple times a week, and I got had a nice firewater flip colt and started roping. And a buddy of mine whose son was at junior high rodeos, same age as my son, he qualified for Vegas, and he just was begging me to enter. And, it was a $2,000 entry fee, and my wife wasn't real big on it. But anyway, he just talked, and I said, okay, I'll enter if you'll take my horse or whatever. And I didn't have a lot of time, so I said, I'll just fly in and fly out. And Malcolm had called around and got me a fairly low head number. Being a lawyer and not being out amongst them, I didn't have a name, so I was able to get a pretty good number. So I went out there with David Nye, And I actually sold that horse about a month before Vegas to a friend of mine named Joe Steele, who lives at Stillwater. But I told Joe, I said, I want to ride him in Vegas. And so he had that horse out there, and I flew in, and of course, I'd rodeoed quite a bit before law school, and then, didn't much. So I was trying to make experiences. So what I did, Jimbo, I didn't even have a hotel room. I took my rope bag, and I put a pair of jeans and a couple ropes and, my overnight deal. And I flew out there, and then ended up, a buddy of mine found me a room. I stayed at South Point. But I just went with the rope bag, and I got there, and my partner had been entered in, the ropings before. I think we were in the 9 point. And so I got there the night before the 9 point started, and found him, and that he was drunk as a skunk. He hadn't done any good. He was up there watching the NFR, and he was having fun. And I the next morning I was up warming my horse up, and he comes in, and he's kind of looking a little sheepish, of course, having a big night. And I said, now look, I know you haven't won anything so far, but we've got this roping will pay a lot. Let's come and pay attention. Of course, he was roping good, and we went out and we made 3 good runs, and drew three good steers, and I think we come back 7th. And so back then they had the finale, the top 30 would come back the next day at high noon. And so we had to wait a whole day. We were 7th high callback at this roping that paid $240,000 to win it. And so we had to wait a whole day. And so I didn't know what to do. I ended up going to the rodeo with Casey Jones, the steer wrestler's wife. Casey was competing. He's an old buddy of mine. So I went with her. That kind of abided by the time. And then I called a couple of buddies. I called Micah Lynch, who's one of the all-time road ropers.
He's a great roper, too.
County a lot. Oh, yeah. And I called Micah and gave him the scenario. And I said, what would you do? And he gave me his advice. And then I called Brad Smith, who's married to Barry Smith and world champion team roper from Arizona and Texas. And I called him, and he gave me his advice. And I said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And so we went down there, and we ended up from 7th. We drew good. I'm sure we won the round that day. We was 7-something. And anyway, they put us back there in the winner's circle, kind of sitting there waiting. And so we was leading it after 7 with 6 to go. And then, we just kept leading it. People couldn't catch us or they'd miss. And it came down to the last team, and they was way ahead. I think they had to just be 11. And it was a father-in-law, son-in-law team. And they turned him. The son-in-law turned him, and that father-in-law just tracked him. And I started looking at the clock. And anyway, they ended up roping him and beating us by 700. Wow. So we ended up 2nd, but we won 180,000. So we were pretty happy to split 180,000, and I was pretty excited to be able to call my wife, and she was still mad at me for going out there, but she wasn't quite as mad after that. So
no.
I don't like ropings that go down to the 100th because, on a flagman, they just 100th of a second. That's just a 10th they can do. Hundredths.
Yeah.
That's splitting it up too much in the roping events. When they got an electric eye for the barrel racing, 100th is just fine. But,
yeah.
But you gotta rely on just a little bit of human hesitation, and you can burn a few hundredths of a second real fast. Oh,
I know. I was just watching the clock because, of course, we weren't expecting to win, and I was looking up, but it got close. And anytime someone tracks them into the wall and down the fence,
it never ends up good.
Yeah, only with Petska does it end up good. But you know, when you got a 5 heeler or something, you know, the odds of them catching are just. But anyway, that's all good, and you know, that's kind of a story of my roping career is I didn't win very many firsts. So I tell folks the reason I went to law school was because I was either second or one out of the money too many times, and so that was fine. I mean, and of course the payoff was great, and that World Series has changed team roping tremendously, and but it was a lot of fun. And Jimbo, I won a buckle, and you know, but another rope bag. So I took my one rope bag that I took, and I think I stuck it in my brand new rope bag, and it took that home, and so that was part of my deal. I just wanted to have a fun experience, and anyway, it was. And
that'll spoil you. You ain't got to haul horses out there or nothing. Just bring your ropes and yourself.
Right.
Leave town with 180.
Good. Yeah, 90. We split it.
Right.
And so I was in the airport, and a buddy of mine named Ben Poor, he's an old saddle bronc rider we went to college with. They were in the airport, and we were sitting around waiting on our flight back. And he asked me, he said, hey, what were you doing out here? I said, we're open. And then I didn't, about 20 minutes later, he said, well, did you do any good? And I said, I won a little bit. And then he said, well, what? And I said, well, here. And I showed him the check. And I mean, he about fainted. Not very often you're carrying a check around for $90,000. So
no, I don't very often.
I wouldn't have had it leaving Vegas. I went to Vegas one time, Jimbo, and I was up big time. It was during the finals and everything. I was up big time on this table, and they went to go get me a player's card. By the time they brought that player's card, Jimbo, I didn't have a nickel to my name, and I was still there for like 4 more days. And by the time I got back to the airport, this is how bad it was. I did not have enough money to get out of the airport parking lot. I had to tell the lady she had to take a check at that little window, to get out of the parking lot. Mm-hmm. And she accepted it, but she sure didn't want to, and I don't blame her because it wasn't any good when I wrote it. But I ended up making it good. But that was and I ran out of diesel before I could even get to a truck stop that day. So last time I went to Vegas, it was just all around mess.
They did offer to cash that check. I mean, and I was like, hell no. And I went and had a nice dinner or lunch with a buddy of mine, and I went and tried my luck at the tables, and that didn't work out. But then I went back to the airport. I was flying out that evening, and so I checked my bags, my rope bags. I checked them, and I looked down, and I was standing on about $80, a wad of money. Somebody had dropped their money at that deal. And so I picked that up. I said, it really is my day. So I got the hell back to Oklahoma. My wife would have killed me if I'd cashed that and not come home with it. So
yeah, I imagine. I've always said Vegas is the most fun place in the world if you've got a pocket full of money. But if you're down on your luck like Cody was at that time, it's the most depressing place in the world. To walk around and see everybody else having fun and playing.
I was like that. I was down to the 99-cent ham and eggs, Jimbo.
Right.
That's what I was eating.
Right. You got to love Vegas. Huh?
You just got to stay in.
I can tell you about this time I went to Deadwood, too, but I'll leave that for another one, Jimbo. I left Deadwood broke as heck, too. I had to send my family home with someone else just to get to the next rodeo.
Well, like fun to me.
That's what rodeo's all about, is really the stories. It's kind of like, the only thing you missed out on is getting to rodeo with Hank a little bit, then you would have had a lot of stories.
Well, I know some Hank rodeo stories too. One time during the 4th of July, they were lumping like 3 rodeos in the same day, old Hankster, and he was in the back of the trailer doing his business, using the bathroom.
Yeah.
This is before they had living quarters and stuff in these trailers, Jimbo. And rumor has it that he slipped and fell in the trailer, and they didn't have time for him to go take a shower or nothing, so he just had to pull his pants up and go to the next rodeo.
Well, you're spot on. Most of Hank's stories had something to do with the bathroom or his clothes failing. You know, it could be like the time in Sykeston, Missouri, when his pants ripped out and he didn't have any underwear on while he was making the run.
Yes.
So he was trying to cover himself. But
you ought to be a steer roper and that happens, and you got to bend over in front of it. You can't even sit down on the calf. So I've seen that happen to a few steer ropers. And it all hangs out there. There's nowhere for it to go but out when the crotch rips out of a pair of pants.
Well, Hank's sister didn't let me go to very many, multi-night rodeos with old Hank. I do remember go. I do remember going to back in '92 or something. Me and J. Paul Williams were trying to fill our permits, and I ended up going with Hank and Billy Peterson to Abbeville. I think it was one of those rodeos over there, and we left the night before about 8:00. Well, then of course they had to go by the bar on the way. And Hank was single, and so they were all looking for at least Hank was looking for ladies, probably not Delee, but they was all, and of course I was dating his sister. We were married at the time, so I was like, well, and so we ended up there. Of course, I'm sure there's some bathroom stories that go to that, and didn't do any good at the pro rodeo. Come back by Mulvane, had an open rodeo. And I won the team roping that day. And, but my wife or girlfriend at the time, she was mad at me for, I kept calling her. This is before cell phones and checking in. And I was like, I just ain't going to be able to haul with Hank like this anymore. So we kind of kept it to those up and back type rodeos. We had to be home that night. So,
well, it keeps life interesting between rodeos on the road.
Oh, it's
and probably
more
at
fun
the rodeo.
If you want Hank stories, what you got to get Mac Ford and Phil Haugen and Kevin Lloyd. If you got those three together, and I've done it like at some rodeo, you catch them, at night, sitting around the trailers. And my kids, start telling my kids Hank stories, and I mean everyone is falling out of the chair. So
yeah, he's definitely one of the funniest humans to ever live.
Yeah, but those three have more stories on Hank than anyone, I would say. So anyway,
hey, your old buddy KC Jones, what a deal he ended up making with this pro fantasy rodeo deal. I mean, it's just really a way to get involved and cheer some people on.
He is a difference maker in rodeo, and I've known KC since we were probably both 8 years old. We'd go out there to the Little Britches finals. He was from Los Animas, Colorado, and of course I was from Western Kansas, so we went to rodeos, all those Western Kansas, Eastern Colorado rodeos, and I used to stay with him at Colorado Springs during the Little Britches finals, and that guy, he is smart and a businessman, and I actually represented him, and still I guess do. Of course, he sold out. Teton Ridge bought those companies from him. He's still running them, but Teton Ridge bought all that, and so I helped him with that. But I'm telling you, Cody, I've never seen anyone who was on the road full-time rodeoing and would be thinking business and could perform on both of the rodeo side and the business side. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times he would call me driving from, wherever, Sykeston to Albuquerque or, all these all-night drives, and he'd call me and say, hey, I've got an idea. Let's do this. And so, so I've, had the pleasure of working with him, and now that he's not rodeoing full time, I mean, the sky's the limit for that guy because he has such good instincts, and he's rodeo minded, and he is good for rodeo. I'll tell you that. So
I think so too. I mean, he really did something big right there, and he got a lot of people to. I think he helped people watching the NFR. I mean, people who weren't even involved in rodeo was building these rodeo teams and tuning in to cheer everybody on. So,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. If you haven't ever been, bought a fantasy rodeo team, you should do it because it will cause you to watch the bull riding and or events, barrel racing events that you might not otherwise watch because you're competing. Yeah, it's a great deal for rodeo.
And on another note, it does seem like the rodeo cowboys, the people coming up today, they seem a lot more professional even than in my day. What about the kids you're seeing in high school rodeo right now?
Well, I think I would agree with you 100%. And I have had the pleasure. I know a lot of these, and they're not necessarily kids now, but you've got the Clay Smiths and the Wesley Thorpes and the Chad Masters and Corey Petskas, Sherry Servey, folks that are in that generation are more professional, and I've gotten to help them on some things, help them with some business stuff. And those guys will return calls. They're thinking about business on, when they're not roping, and they're just so professional. I mean, they really are. And I think that's rubbing off on this next generation. Going back to Oklahoma high school rodeo, my oldest son is 27. And so that's kind of the barometer. The folks that are older than that, I might have known from something else, but if they're 27 or below, I probably knew them through junior rodeos or junior high school rodeos in Oklahoma. And so, you got people like Brandon Hall and, the Yakwo boys or Wyatt Casper and Colt Gordon, those folks. I mean, they're talented, but they know that, they're athletes and they've got to take care of themselves and that there's a business behind it. So I really think that it's different. We tell these old stories from the 80s and 90s, and I've got a lot of kids that they say, oh man, I wish I'd have, lived, been able to rodeo back then. And I kind of say, yeah, but you really don't. I mean, rodeo right now, there is no better time to be, in youth rodeo specifically, and then rodeo in general, with all the opportunities that they have.
There's a lot more people. They take care of their bodies better. They take care of their everything better nowadays, Jimbo. You don't see the old school cowboys anymore. It's turning into a serious business, and they got to take it serious for the cost of it, I think. Maybe.
Right, the cost of it and the money at stake. Like if you can make the finals, in Nevada, that's just big money,
Well, there's a lot of kids now that this wasn't this way when I was growing up. They homeschool and they focus on rodeo, and they travel to rodeos and ropings year round now. So it just seems like it's just a lot more serious business than it used to be, even on the high school level.
Right. How long have you been president of the Oklahoma High School Rodeo Association, Jeff?
Way too long, Jimbo.
Really?
Well, I've probably been president for about 9 years here, and my youngest daughter's a junior, and I got involved back 9-10 years ago, and kind of try to do what you're saying with the association, to follow what folks are doing in the industry. And so we kind of rebranded it, paid a little bit of money to get some logos. We have a survey of our members. And so, I've basically said, let's sell this brand. And so we go to communities like Pawhuska. We go to, communities around the state that have good facilities. And we say, look, we can bring in 300 kids to your community for 3 days, and I can tell you within a few dollars of how much their parents are going to spend over that weekend. And so if you show them that data, then they will, kind of fall over themselves wanting us to be there. because I can show them the demographics and the economic impact. And so that's kind of what I started doing. And so I have been the president for a while, and it's a great, with great pleasure that I'm doing it. It's a big burden, but I work in the office a lot, and so I can run the paperwork. I can send in, the grant requests. I can send stuff around, and then I've got a great group of dads and moms dads and moms that also believe in high school rodeo and believe in creating leaders and things like that, and so that's what we've been doing the last few years. And my time is short. I'm ready to be done, but I want to finish it out for as long as my daughter wants high school rodeo. I'll probably keep helping.
Right. About how many sanctioned rodeos do they have across the state on average?
Yeah, we have nearly every year. We'll have 10 weekends a year in the high school. We usually have 6 in the fall and 4 in the spring, and then we have our state finals. And for the last several years, our state finals have been at the Grady County Fairgrounds in Chickasha. They've built just a fabulous facility down there, and we get a lot of support from that community. And so we have in the junior high, so the Oklahoma High School Association, we have 2 divisions. We have a high school division, which is 9th through 10th, and we have a junior high division, which is 5th through 8th. And so we co-sanction some junior high rodeos. We have 4 in the fall and 4 in the spring. And, we have about around 100 junior high contestants the last several years, and about 200, a little over 200 high school. 100 junior high, 200 high school. And so when we come to Pawhuska here in about a month, we'll bring 300 families, and they'll hang out and they'll spend money in the community. And on average, I think 75% of our members spend more than $300 on the weekend. I think it's probably more like 500. And so we'll be spending some money up there in Osage County, which I think is absolutely great.
I do too. That's a pretty good little shot in the arm for any little community, for a weekend. Looks to me like. But because they're going to get gas, they're all going to fill the rigs up on their way home, and they're going to eat while they're here. It's just a win-win.
If they all spend $300 a piece, that's $90,000 headed to Pawhuska.
Right. Would you have to get the calculator out to figure that?
Oh, just real quick in my head, Jimbo.
Oh, yeah.
And it's more than that. I would say it's more like $150,000-$200,000 economic impact for our weekend rodeos. Because we got grandparents, and you got someplace like Pawhuska with history and good facilities. You're going to get grandparents coming in, and it's a really good thing for the communities. And like I said, we've tried to. That's really the main thing I've done as president, is to try to promote the brand and get it out there, because, as you guys both know, Oklahoma High School Rodeo has such great tradition. Think of all the world champions that have been kicked out. And then, right now, you can just look at the folks that have come through Oklahoma High School Rodeo that are at the NFR, that are on Cowboy Channel, and then now with the breakaway being so big, there's you got Kelsey Chase, you got Taylor Munsell. I tell you, these girls events, guys, they are a knife fight. The girls, we'll have 60 breakaway ropers, for example, and we'll have 25 calf ropers. The breakaway roping is exploded, and it's tough. And so, we're building them, and they're coming. They're, and there's not a lot of added money there. There's 40 or 50 of them that will come beat you day in and day out.
We were trying to figure out a power match to have during the Ben Johnson here, and we couldn't think of 2 calf ropers we'd even like to see match, 2 team ropers, 2 steer ropers, or nothing. But we did think the hottest match going would be Jackie Joe Crawford against somebody.
Whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
we think that would draw more interest than any 2 calf ropers matching today. Just because it is the hottest sport going. They're the hottest names in rodeo right now, too, I feel like. these women breakaway ropers, especially in the time event?
Well, of course, Jackie, she came up through Oklahoma high school rodeos. They moved into Oklahoma before her high school, and then I would say if you guys want to do it, I can set it up. You got to get Kelsey Chase Domer, who grew up in Cherokee, and she's as bad as a cat as they come.
Oh yeah,
and
is her dad Jay Domer?
Well, that's her father-in-law.
Oh, her father-in-law.
Is Jay Domer.
Okay,
Yeah,
I knew Jay.
Yeah, she married Jay Domer's son, Ryan. Yep. And that would be a good match, you bet. So
it just seems like, you put her up against somebody, that's a match they're going to be talking about. People are going to be wanting to see.
I mean, on the cap roping side, you could go with Luke Potter and Tyler Milligan if you wanted to have a little local flavor, because both those boys, of course, they came up through Oklahoma high school, junior high rodeos, and of course, I think Luke's going to make the finals this year, and Tyler, of course, has. So he's a local boy. So
we were just talking about like a Cody Ole and Fred Whitfield type match. I just don't feel like there's two names out there right now. The breakaway ropers are the biggest names. I feel like that would be in a match. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Well, you've seen so many calf roping matches over the years, and stuff. I'd rather see the two girls and two good horses rope.
You let me know, guys. I'll help you get it hooked up.
The problem we had it was during Reno this year. Yeah. So all the big breakaway ropers definitely want to hit Reno since they're having it now.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Yeah. What all events do they have at high school rodeo?
Well, the high school is pretty much the traditional rodeo events, plus, and the girls that have goat tying and pole bending. But otherwise, it's all the traditional pro rodeo events. Of course, now breakaway, goat tying, and pole bending are the added ones for the girls. And then in the junior high, they have added in saddle bronc steer riding, saddle bronc bareback riding, and on steers. And that's kind of a big deal up north, on these, up in Canada and the Northwest, where they, a lot of the good bronc riders come, as they start them out riding steers. And so that they started doing that a few years ago, and I think it has improved the kind of the number of rough stock riders that we have. But in the junior high, it'll be kind of traditional junior rodeo type events. And man, nothing more fun than the junior high, because those kids still can't drive. They're all about having fun and roping dummy. You have all these dummy roping matches and things like that. And so I'm pretty partial to the junior high rodeos, just because it's still pure and fun, and those kids are competitive, but they're not quite as cutthroat. As once you get to high school, it's so competitive that they kind of fall into specialties at that time. But in junior high, you got folks going, and this year you got JP Wickett's boys, probably one of the top junior high boys going. He's Jay Luke, and he's an 8th grader, and he kind of stands out. And we've got several other kids that are high quality kids, and there's a lot of talent in Oklahoma, as you guys can imagine.
Rodeo seems to have a lot of legacy families, don't it?
It does. I mean, that's been one of the fun things that, as being kind of involved. Billy Etbauer's boy, Treg, and he came through high school rodeos, so you get to hang out with Billy Etbauer 10 weekends a year. Now that's a pretty big bonus. I mean, Bobby Griswold, he's been there for many years. His youngest is in high school, and so he's got 3 girls. And so Bobby, he's a great guy. Joey Bell, another NFR steer wrestler. His daughter's in junior high right now, and he had his stepson was went through junior high and high school back a few years ago. And so we get some kind of fun, it's pretty cowboy minded, from top to bottom. But, you get some of those former NFR guys and gold buckle guys. It's, makes for a good rodeo atmosphere.
How about your sponsors, Jeff? Are they mostly just local sponsors, or do you have some statewide sponsors?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great set of sponsors. We start kind of with National Salary based in the Stockyards. They have been a big supporter for as long as I've been involved. Joe and Terry Weems that own National Salary, they love the youth events. And so they make sure we have 2 events a year that happen at the Lazy E, and we couldn't do that without National Salary. Lazy E is a big sponsor of ours. They make it happen to where we can have events there. National Trailer Source, they're out of Decatur. They sponsor us, and along with Cimarron Trailers, which is a local trailer manufacturer in Chickasha. I think they kind of make sure that we are involved in that Chickasha community, which we're there 4 times a year. The Choctaw Nation, we've got some of the tribes help us because, from our demographics, we know that over 20% of our members are also members of the tribe. And so we get some tribal help. I need to work on the Osages on that a little bit. They've supported us in the past. Farm Credit of Western Oklahoma, they've been a long time supporter of us. And then one of our newer sponsors has been the Oklahoma Electric Cooperatives Association. The statewide association is a big sponsor of ours. And of course, you just have to show them our schedule, and they see that we are in all these communities where their members are, these local electric cooperatives. So that's what's nice about our brand, Jimbo. And if I show them, if I get in front of them, show them my material, show them what our kids do and what we're doing to create new leaders, it's getting sponsorships is almost easy. It's just really about having time to promote them, and so we do have a great set of sponsors. And then, of course, when we come to different events, the family that bought the Crossbell Ranch, the Teague family, they're a big promoter of high school rodeo, and we're going to have a cutting up there the Friday before our rodeos, and they help make it happen in Pawhuska, and the local chamber, the tourism, and the county. They've all been great. And my goal, as I kind of exit out of this, as I age out, so to speak, is I want to have a rodeo in Pawhuska every year. I think Pawhuska is a rodeo community that we need to have a presence for Oklahoma high school rodeo. Those kids get a big kick out of it. They need to go to the museum. They need to go hang around, and then when they pull in and they see all those world champions that come from Osage County, and then just being able to drive through Osage County. I mean, I can't tell you the number of parents that have said, "Man, I've never been up here. I can't believe, what pretty country this is." And, is John Israel, does he really live right here? And, they kind of hear about it and know about it, but getting to experience it, I've never had anyone that says, "Man, this place, stinks." They all like Pawhuska, Osage County. Just the history and the lure behind it is amazing. So,
when I was in high school rodeo, Jimbo, they made us wear our back numbers from the time we got to the rodeo till the time we left. No matter what kind of clothes we were wearing. That way, if we got in any trouble, they went and reported the number of the kid that did all the trouble. Yeah. We got caught not wearing them, we got in some trouble.
That is still a rule, Cody.
Oh, is it?
And of course, oh yeah, you will see back numbers October 6th through the 8th, and of course, I sell it as a marketing. These kids are marketing to the community. We want them to go around and and for people to see, oh, these are rodeo kids, because nowadays our kids their behavior is appropriate. That none of them ever get in trouble.
It was marketing for the other kids, but for Cody, it was a way of keeping track of him.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say that we don't have any kids like Cody, but there might be a few that I kind of have to keep my eye on.
Right.
But by and large, we've all got great kids. And I tell you what, I kind of jokingly tell folks that we have more trouble with parents sometimes, and I call it the Yellowstone effect, because I think everyone has watched the Yellowstone, and they all think that they can act like that, and talk like that. Yeah. And I have to remind them, I'm like, hey, this isn't Yellowstone. There's consequences when you do things like that. And so, Cody, you need to come by. I'd love to have you guys come by if you're in town, and it's free admission. We'll have stuff going on outside, inside, but just to see the kids, and like I say, by and large, we have the best set of kids. And rodeo kids nowadays have changed a little bit, like Cody said. And if you're a parent and you're committed to hauling your kids to, 10 high school rodeos, 10 weekends a year plus state finals, I mean, you're committed to that kid, because it costs a lot, at $4 diesel to do what these parents do. And so these parents are committed to this lifestyle and wanting to make sure their kids are raised in that. And so that's what I talk about. I mean, we love to raise champions and have champions go through there, but I also am tickled with folks that, like Cody, he's come through here, did his Sanger Open, and now he's such a successful businessman and doing things like that. I mean, that really makes me more happy when these kids come through there and they go, and go become a plumber or a welder and start contributing to society. That's really what I'm about, is making sure these kids are good kids, and I think we can contribute to that.
Super.
How many dollars worth of horses and pickups and trailers do you think will be parked out here in October?
Millions. I mean, especially as much as these trailers cost and trucks, everybody's pulling aluminum living quarters, and those are anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 rigs, and plus these $80,000 trucks that we're pulling, and then on top of that, you got the horses. I mean, the horse market and horse prices, and there's typically some NFR horses. We'll have some barrel horses here that have been at the NFR, Janae Massey, her daughter will be here. She's a freshman this year. She rode Little Reddy, that her aunt has, had the arena record, Thomas and Mack, on for a while, and rode Wolfie, which was at the NFR. And the horse flesh is amazing, and as you know, it's an endless battle. Cody, next time I'm up there, I'll show you. You probably know who Darwin McGowan is.
Oh yeah.
Dixon and I were the same age, and when Dixon died, Darwin came by when my son was 5, and he just wanted to turn out calves for my son, or watch him ride. And he came back when he was roping and turning calves out. But he told me, he said, "Have you bought a horse yet?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we got a pony. We bought a pony from June Holman from her granddaughter had outgrown him. So we had this really nice pony." And he said, "Do me a favor." He said, "Every time you buy a kid horse," he said, "keep your little piece of paper in your wallet and write a name down." And I've got that, and it's one of my most prized possessions, because I kept track of those horses that I bought for my 3 kids. And I don't know, I'll text you a picture of it, Cody, but there's probably 20 horses on there. And of course, the ones towards the bottom of the page, you could buy, all the ones at the top of the page because they just keep getting more expensive. And but that's Darwin. Every time I see Darwin, he wants to see my list. And luckily, I'm kind of winding down on having to buy kid horses, so maybe I can spend some money on something else. So
I'm pretty sure to this day, Dixon McGowan, he was on his well on his way to his first national final steer roping. Heck of a good roper, heck of a good guy. Tragically died, and I think they still have an award to him, to the top rookie that makes the national finals. If it's your first time to make the national finals and you come in ahead of all the other people, it's their first time in the steer roping event, they give out the annual Dixon McGowan Award still, I believe.
Yep. He was you're exactly right. He got killed, I think, after graduation. He was driving home from Southwestern after graduating from college, and tragic. He was going to make the NFR that year, and man, his dad, Darwin, is just one of the greatest guys, and still ropes. And
heck, he ropes good. I just saw he won something at the BFI, one of the BFI ropings just the other day.
He's won thousands of dollars. I mean, he won the BFI 11, and then he won it back in the day when it was in Reno. Won the 100,000 then. So yeah, don't let Darwin kid you. He'll still get your money even though he's 74 years old. So
he's a good guy too. Holy moly! If you ever get a chance to let your kids hang around a guy, that's a good one. They'll leave with a good attitude. About guarantee that.
That's why we still do it. It's the people. It's the people that you see that's so great. So,
what about y'all's rough stock riders coming up? Your new crop of rough stock riders, how are they looking?
Well,
you got some riding Okies coming.
We do. I tell you a name that you ought to write down. He just graduated. Name is Heston Harrison. He actually, you might already know him. He was the bronc riding that you guys had up in the Osage. He come and rode, in the junior riding. But Heston Harrison is quite the little saddle bronc rider. I think you'll hear from him. We've had some good bull riders that have just kind of graduated. So we kind of got a new crop of bull riders. There's a kid named Pepper Parnell that just graduated from Guthrie, and he's a heck of a bull rider that just graduated.
That's a name you'll remember. Pepper Parnell.
You'll remember Pepper Parnell. Yep, he is pretty sticky. Now, our new crop, I don't really, I haven't seen the standouts quite yet because they're all pretty much new. And I haven't been watching the junior high the last couple of years since my daughter's been in high school. But those are two names that just graduated that come up through Oklahoma ranks. And then, of course, Trey Kimsey was the same age as my older daughter. So saw him come through. His big brother Sage, he went through. Then there was a kid named Cannon Craven that won the bull riding at the junior high when he was in 8th grade. Same year my daughter won, I think, the reserve all-around out there. And Cannon went through the PBR deal. So we got them. Like I said, probably the biggest names. I'll tell you a couple more names. Of course, you've probably heard of the Yaqua boys, LJ and JC.
Those boys rode real good. They used to come up here to the cavalcade.
Yep, they just graduated a couple years ago, and good boys, and they've made a name for themselves. Mason Appleton is over there from Copan, works for Billy Jack, and he's placed at Salinas this year. He's a name that you need to watch. I mean, I think he has equal talent to what Britton Hall had when Britton came out. So, and then there's a kid named Landon Glenn who graduated last year. Those two, Mason and Landon, won state last year, a year ago in 22. And Landon Glenn won the Spicer Grip this year, the team roping. So we got the kids. I mean, we bring them up here. So
every big name in the country is roping at the Spicer Grip.
Yep.
Yeah, and
everyone at the same place.
If you watch Landon Glenn, I don't know what callback he was. I watched his run on Facebook, and that boy wanted to win it. Like, his header went a little bit farther, that Thompson boy I think he was roping with, and Landon, as a heeler, picked up speed and got him on the first jump because he wanted to win first. And that's the new mentality of these kids, is they go at them. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they don't want to just win second and third like I did. They go for first. So,
well, with all these sudden death rounds now in PRCA Rodeo, when they take a step up, that looks like the way you're going to have to go. The average is out the window.
It's a knife fight. I'm telling you, these, it's the level of competition. I can tell you this. My older daughter's 23, and she just won a ton through junior high and high school, and roped good, did all that, rides barrel horses now. But my younger daughter, I think, ropes better than my older daughter, but wins less, and it's just because it's so much tougher. I mean, you've got to step up the competition now, and it's deeper. I mean, you've got, like I said, there's probably 40 girls that can go win first in the breakaway, whereas 5 years ago there might have been 5. And then you've also got, they're all on nice horses. The level of quality of horses up. So it's a great thing. I'm telling you, it's a wonderful time to be in the sport of rodeo if you like competition and want to be able to have such great events to go to, from youth all the way to the top.
They still have a church service every Sunday? But
we do. We've got we do every Sunday, 8:30. We've got a kid named Blake Smith. He's with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He's actually got an Osage connection. He's somehow kin to J. Paul Williams. And he spent time up there in Ponca City with Jake and Joanne. But Blake is with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he makes sure we have a great church service every week. And we just had our rodeo at the Lazy E this weekend, and I bet we had 200 people in the stands for church service. And Miles Williams actually came and spoke. Their ropes for Trevor. Just fantastic church service. So again, we try to do it right at our high school rodeos.
He's right about all these contestants. A few years ago, you used to be able to drive up to a rodeo when you knew who you had to beat. And now, pretty well every dang sport, Jimbo, in rodeo, most of the people there is capable of beating you. It's just wild how far it has come and how many tough rodeo guys there are now compared to just a few dominant people just a few years ago.
It's just a sign of the times. It's just only going to get bigger and better.
Well, all righty. Did the kids got to have good grades to go to these rodeos?
Well, they got to have passing grades.
That's what I mean. Passing was good for me.
Yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We have to see a report card, and I have to remind some of those boys that, hey, if you want to enter state finals, we got to see your report card. And so we do. There are education requirements that we have, and I think we do. That's another good bonus. And college rodeo is a good way to do that too. It keeps some kids involved and in the classroom. But and we have a lot of kids that do the online school and homeschool type deal. I tell you, most kids do online school, so it's public education, but it's online rather than just the straight up homeschooling like you might have seen years ago. But
yeah, that's what we do. My wife, she was a teacher. She just comes up with her own curriculum for her kids.
Well, when you have a teacher in the family, that's you can do that and get by, and I think have a quality education. But the online school has been good because it gives these kids the ability to go practice. And we've got some kids that if you're a trainer's kid, they might do their schoolwork in the evenings because they're out working horses in the morning. And so again, I think that's increased the quality of competition. But yeah, we try to keep them in the classroom, and they've got to have grades to go to state finals. So I know some of them have to hustle around to keep those grades up.
I scrape by when it comes to state finals. Had to send that report card in, Jimbo. Holy moly. Holy moly, every year.
That really surprises me, Cody.
I bet your dad, I bet Rocky was cracking the whip on you, Cody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
His mom, probably.
Mom was. Hell, my dad, he was off rodeoing himself. Yeah. He was rodeoing and going to 6 horse sales a week. He wasn't around a whole heck of a lot. When he was home, all we did was practice, which is okay.
Of course, your dad, me being from Kansas, your dad was a legend, because he was making the finals and had a Kansas address. And then I got to see him, I think last summer, before he moved up there, right before he moved up to Pawhuska. I went and picked up some cedar from Mike Chase, and Rocky loaded me up. And so I had fun chatting with him, and we started talking steer open stories. So.
Well, what else you got for Jeff today?
Well, I just want to encourage everybody to come out and support these kids October 7th and 8th. And it's really going to be a big, nice rodeo, and hopefully we could make it an annual event.
Well, anything we can do to help, just let us know. We're all about it.
Push it around. We appreciate you guys. I listen to your podcast, nearly every one of them. I love them all. And appreciate you focusing on Osage County. And like I said, you just send the word out, Cody and Jimbo, that we're going to be here and that it's important for the community. And it does get visibility because we're a statewide organization, and we want all these kids to be in the Osage and experience a little bit of that. And you might think about, Cody, on the museum. A lot of our families will be coming in on Friday afternoon, and so send me some info, and I'll try to get you some folks that are coming by. And even on Saturday, some of them will have time between events, but I want to promote you guys too, and appreciate what you guys do for this lifestyle, the industry, and of course Osage County, because it's the best place to be.
We agree with you.
Yes. Ditto on that.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we sure appreciate you coming on today. I don't know if we got a Mount Rushmore for you. I don't know lawyers.
I don't know what I was thinking about that.
Yep.
I was thinking about the same thing.
Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, and who else is going to be on that deal?
Perry Mason.
Oh God, I don't know about too many. I'm a horseshoeing, roping lawyer, and there's not very many of them around. I put myself through school shoeing horses in the Osage, and
that's work there.
And then, so. But it allowed me to stand out, and it just shows you that you can, these kids, they can do whatever they want, and so I've enjoyed it. It's been a good lifestyle for me, but I've always tried to keep my hands from being soft and stay roping and stay around cattle and stay close to the lifestyle that I was raised in, and so I think we've been pretty good at that. But appreciate you guys a lot. I think you guys are on the top of the Mount Rushmore for podcasters. That's what I'd put you two right there at the top.
Well, without guys like you, Jeff, this kind of stuff on high school rodeos and a lot of other things that has to do with our way of life just wouldn't go. So we appreciate you too, man.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, all right.
It's a great pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Our pleasure.
All right, everybody. This has been a great episode of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. Be sure like and share. Throw a comment on there for me and Jimbo. Jimbo responds to about every comment.
I try to. I might miss you. If I miss you, it's not on purpose.
He just knows a lot more about computers and things than I do. He's a whiz. So,
right.
Or I'd be responding to them all. I just got a Facebook the other day. So, all right. We'll see everybody next week, and thanks for tuning in.